For this next part of our class, we will be talking about outlining and the different stages of outlining to help guide you through these next several days so that you can continue on organizing your information. So for just going back, this is not in your books, we're going back to high school basics. What are the 3 parts to an outline?
Intro, body, conclusion.
That's it. Intro, body, conclusion. And what should you be working on first?
Intro?
Body.
Oh, yeah.
I've heard every answer, but only one is correct.
Intro.
Not the intro,
It's the body.
the body.
Yeah.
Okay, so for, and that's common, a lot of students will say the intro when they first start writing, because as we've been creating our specific purpose and our central idea, it just seems to make sense that that's the next thing you start on. But the reason why we start on the body first, well, what is the reason why we say that it's better to start on the body? Why they say, because they have a lot of things they say.
Is it for the organization? Like organize everything better and make it sound clearer?
That's exactly why. So when you start with something that you know, and like I said, you aren't fully committed to your specific purpose, you're not fully committed to your central idea, because you need to see where this research is leading you, and then when you have those in line, when you have the organization, we just talked about organizational formats, you can start putting these in your outline, the body of your outline, and then you know what's going to be in there. Your introduction, which we haven't talked about introductions, but your introduction is basically you telling the audience what you're going to tell them, and the only way how you know what you're going to tell them is after you develop that information. So you can get overly committed to your topic if you write your introduction first and then realize that it's really not going in the direction that you wanted, but you fight it for a while. That's happened before. You can see from the head nods of some of us that have taken a few classes, it's happened to me before too. So if you just start with your body first, you're going to be in better shape. There are a few different stages in writing an outline, and your book talks about this, but there are preliminary stages, which is actually what you're doing right now. So you're gathering information, you're getting ideas of what could or could not be in your outline. So you and I were working with that quite a bit just, before we took our break. And that just is, that's actually those beginning stages. As you develop this, you're still in the preliminary working outline, but as you move through to a polished outline, it looks like the example outline that I passed out to you. So what are some of the differences between where you're at right now to this final polished outline? What are some of the obvious differences if you look at that example outline? I may not have any more example outlines, but I know you do.
You got all your main points now?
So you have your main points. What about the formatting? We were just talking about formatting a moment ago.
It's clean, and it's clear, and you can understand.
It's clean, it's clear, and notice that this is not like your composition papers. They're just as much work as your composition papers, but they are structured for public speaking. So when you're looking at this and you're practicing, you can see clearly there are transitions that are actually written in here between the main points, and that's going to help you to develop your public speaking skills. So this is a special kind of project that you're doing. And then as you convert this over to actually the presentation, you end up having note cards that do not necessarily have every single detail on them. They're just as a guide because you know the material so well.
On the note cards, is it just like main points that you're going to be discussing, so that way you kind of know where to move to next? And so
For
on?
your second presentation, that's exactly what you'll do. So you'll just have, it won't be detailed, it'll be more like I don't know where my note card is, but, you know, it'll just have a few things just to guide you. For your first one, I expect you, especially if you don't have a lot of experience with this type of presentation, to probably put most everything on your note cards. Definitely by the second one, you still want to keep all your references so you don't forget them, but you won't have as much information, and you'll be a little more engaged in the audience, at least for eye contact and gestures. So those are some of the differences. But for the first one, I expect you to add a few more notes than you would on the second one. And you can use as many note cards as you like. I don't limit that in our class. Okay, so now that we know the stages of an outline, how do we develop these main points? Well, we already have started to do that. We just don't realize it because of the organizing portion. So for some of us, we have written logical divisions for a thesis statement. And I said, if you do that, then you have already imposed that organization within your outline. So if you talk about the first thing or the second thing in a thesis statement, those are your main points. And for this class, since it's a 4 to 5 minute presentation, then you really don't have time to develop more than 2 or 3 points. It's going to go that fast. You can consider some of the organizational patterns that we have talked about. So for example, cause and effect can be one main point, can be another main point, or that can be within one main point, cause and effect as subpoints. One way to help you organize yourself is to create another mind map where you put your thesis statement right in the middle of here and ask yourself who, what, when, where, and why. So if we were to take Hawaiian weddings right here, what are some of the questions we can ask about Hawaiian weddings?
Like, you want me to tell you different
Yeah,
things?
yeah.
Okay.
So we,
like, there are different foods in part of the ceremony, and,
okay,
like, foods go up and go.
okay. So foods here. So what are the different foods that we could talk about in the Hawaiian wedding ceremony?
Oh, I don't know the specific.
So let's just we'll guess.
Pineapples. Pineapple.
Pineapples. Pineapple cake. Pineapple wedding cake.
Kind of like roast things in front of you.
Pigs, yeah, roasted pigs.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, and, you know, and I'm just, you know, I don't know very much about the culture, but, and we're guessing, but that could be some ideas for you to branch off into for a main point. So one of your main points could be the food.
Or why are they unique?
Why are they unique? Okay, why are Hawaiian weddings unique? And so then you can answer those questions because of the different merging cultures. You know, the Asian influence, for example. What could be another thing that we could add in here?
Location?
Because of where it's at? Yes. Okay. An island. Islands have different cultures. So that can be another area where you branched off on. Now you can come up with some other ideas, but remember that you want to keep it limited to how much you can talk about. If you find yourself really developing one of these main points and it's out here, it's well developed, that you may start tweaking that specific purpose, central idea, and that may be the whole thing. So that's how you handle all that information.
What another good point would that, or how are they different from like one of our weddings? Would that be another good point?
Compare and contrast.
Can I do that in that one? Compare and contrast?
Yeah.
Like that's.
Yeah, you could do that.
Okay.
You can do that. You can, yeah, and you could do cause and effect along with that. You could do that with pro-con. One of the advantages is, you know, that they can do that on an island. You know, the disadvantage here is that, you know, we're landlocked. You know, so we don't have access to fresh fish like, you know, an island would. So those are that. So you can see how you can start incorporating different organizational patterns even within your main point. So a couple of you, this is still pretty basic because you already have your main points developed, you just realized it right now. But for some of you that have taken a couple steps back, that are gathering some more research, you may want to just go back to a mind map at this stage and use it for this purpose. And then from that point, and I promised you that if you did the background work, this next part would be easy. Your main point, you're just going to state it kind of like a thesis statement, something declarative. Cultures, or let's say weddings in Hawaii are culturally influenced or culturally different from the United States. Then you answer those questions. You always answer the questions. Okay, why? Maybe because of the food, so maybe you want to come back and talk about that. Cause and effect, or pro and con, can come into these areas. So you just start answering these questions, and you shape it up into similar points. When you develop a main point, you need to make sure you have enough supporting evidence. So at a minimum, you should have an A and B, or these two things, and these two things here. Most of you will probably develop it a little bit more. And don't be surprised if you have one main point that has more information than another main point. It's actually kind of strange to have main points that are exactly the same size. So don't worry about that if you see something that, maybe you have these developed to here, and then the other one has an A and B, a C on it. That's okay. Gauge how long your information is. If you have 6 pages written of information, you might have a little bit too much information for your outline, so you have to make some decisions over that.
So how many points do you have?
2 is about ideal for this class.
2 points and two each support?
2 main points and then,
Two main points, and then this can vary a little bit. So don't go that by an absolute rule, because it's going to depend on your topics. But that's just a way to gauge where you're at. So if you have 10 pages of written notes, you're going to have to cut out information. As you shape this up, you may want to start paying attention to if your tabbings are getting off. If they are, just know that you're going to have to go back and do a sweep at the end. Make sure your fonts are all the same. Make sure it's all double spaced. Make sure things are consistent.